we had yet beheld. Just in front of us, at the distance of about 10 yards, grew a superb tree, which certainly was the largest we had seen on the island. Its trunk was at least 5 feet in diameter, with a smooth grey bark. Above this, the spreading branches were clothed with light green leaves, amid which were clusters of bright yellow fruit, so numerous as to weigh down the boughs with their great weight. This fruit seemed to be of the plum species, of an oblong form, and a good deal larger than the magnum bonum plum. The ground at the foot of this tree was thickly strewn with the fallen fruit, in the midst of which lay sleeping, in every possible attitude, at least 20 hogs of all ages and sizes, apparently quite surfeited with the recent banquet. Jack and I could scarce restrain our laughter as we gazed at these coarse, fat, ill-looking animals while they lay groaning and snoring heavily amid the remains of their supper. "Now, Ralph," said Jack in a low whisper, "put a stone in your sling, a good big one, and let fly at that fat fellow with his back toward you. I'll try to put an arrow into yon little pig." "Don't you think we had better put them up first?" I whispered. "It seems cruel to kill them while asleep." "If I wanted sport, Ralph, I would certainly set them up; but as we only want pork, we'll let them lie. Besides, we're not sure of killing them, so fire away." Thus admonished, I slung my stone with so good aim that it went bang against the hog's flank as if against the head of a drum; but it had no other effect than that of causing the animal to start to its feet with a frightful yell of surprise and scamper away. At the same instant Jack's bow twanged, and the arrow pinned the little pig to the ground by the ear. "I've missed after all!" cried Jack, darting forward with uplifted axe, while the little pig uttered a loud squeal, tore the arrow from the ground, and ran away with it, along with the whole drove, into the bushes and disappeared, though we heard them screaming long afterwards in the distance. "That's very provoking now," said Jack, rubbing the point of his nose. "Very," I replied, stroking my chin. "Well, we must make haste and rejoin Peterkin," said Jack. "It's getting late." And without further remark we threaded our way quickly through the woods towards the shore. When we reached it we found wood laid out, the fire lighted and beginning to kindle up, with other signs of preparation for our encampment. But Peterkin was nowhere to be found. We wondered very much at this, but Jack suggested that he might have gone to fetch water; so he gave a shout to let him know that we had arrived, and sat down upon a rock, while I threw off my jacket and seized the axe, intending to split up 1 or 2 billets of wood. But I had scarce moved from the spot when, in the distance, we heard a most appalling shriek, which was followed up by a chorus of yells from the hogs and a loud hurrah! "I do believe," said I, "that Peterkin has met with the hogs." "When Greek meets Greek," said Jack, soliloquising. "Then comes the tug of " "Hurrah!" shouted Peterkin in the distance. We turned hastily towards the direction whence the sound came, and soon descried Peterkin walking along the beach towards us with the little pig transfixed on the end of his long spear. "Well done, my boy!" exclaimed Jack, slapping him on the shoulder when he came up. "You're the best shot amongst us." "Look here, Jack!" cried Peterkin as he disengaged the animal from his spear. "Do you recognise that hole?" said he, pointing to the pig's ear. "And are you familiar with this arrow, eh?" "Well, I declare!" said Jack. "Of course you do," interrupted Peterkin. "But pray restrain your declarations at this time, and let's have supper, for I'm uncommonly hungry, I can tell you. And it's no joke to charge a whole herd of swine, with their great grandmother, bristling like a giant porcupine, at the head of them." We now set about preparing supper, and truly a good display of viands we made when all was laid out on a flat rock in the light of the blazing fire. There was, first of all, the little pig; then there were the taro root, and the yam, and the potato, and 6 plums, and lastly the wood pigeon. To these Peterkin added a bit of sugar cane, which he had cut from a little patch of that plant which he had found not long after separating from us. "And," said he, "the patch was somewhat in a square form, which convinces me it must have been planted by man." "Very likely," replied Jack. "From all we have seen, I'm inclined to think that some of the savages must have dwelt here long ago." We found no small difficulty in making up our minds how we were to cook the pig. None of us had ever cut one up before, and we did not know exactly how to begin. Besides, we had nothing but the axe to do it with, our knife having been forgotten. At last Jack started up and said, "Don't let us waste more time talking about it, boys. Hold it up, Peterkin. There, lay the hind leg on this block of wood, so," and he cut it off, with a large portion of the haunch, at a single blow of the axe. "Now the other. That's it." And having thus cut off the two hind legs, he made several deep gashes in them, thrust a sharp pointed stick through each, and stuck them up before the blaze to roast. The wood pigeon was then split open, quite flat, washed clean in salt water, and treated in a similar manner. While these were cooking, we scraped a hole in the sand and ashes under the fire, into which we put our vegetables and covered them up. The taro root was of an oval shape, about 10 inches long and 4 or 5 thick. It was of a mottled grey colour, and had a thick rind. We found it somewhat like an Irish potato, and exceedingly good. The yam was roundish, and had a rough brown skin. It was very sweet and well flavoured. The potato, we were surprised to find, was quite sweet and exceedingly palatable, as also were the plums, and indeed the pork and pigeon too, when we came to taste them. Altogether, this was decidedly the most luxurious supper we had enjoyed for many a day. Jack said it was out of sight better than we ever got on board ship, and Peterkin said he feared that if we should remain long on the island we would infallibly become a glutton or an epicure; whereat Jack remarked that he need not fear that, for he was both already. And so, having eaten our fill, not forgetting to finish off with a plum, we laid ourselves comfortably down to sleep upon a couch of branches, under the overhanging ledge of a coral rock. Chapter 10. Recording by Tom Weiss.